special moment with a player when he is selected is a big highlight for me. My body won't miss those great big bear hugs, but I sure will. Instead, we'll find other ways to have fun virtually. Second, I will miss the interaction I have with our fans over these 3 days. It's a draft tradition and one that I genuinely enjoy. Let's hear from you right now. Oh, come on, guys. You can do better than that. Let's go. Oh, Strahan, come on, let's go. Come on, you guys can do better than that. All right, keep it coming. Wow, even the virtual boos are good. Yes, I can hear you from my basement, so keep it coming. Lastly, the best part of the draft is that it restores hope and generates optimism, because every team gets better through the draft. So good luck to every team, and let's get it started. It's now my honor to announce that the first ever virtual NFL draft is officially open. The Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock.
Commissioner, thanks very much. We told you we'd have some boos for you. Zach Taylor is there looking to make his first selection. Duke Tobin also furiously working through what may be happening. Of course, you earned the top pick in the draft, and the Cincinnati Bengals, while they have had some playoff appearances over the last 10 to 15 years, have struggled. Fifth worst record in NFL history, .449 winning percentage. 20 seasons without a playoff win, the longest active streak in the NFL. And of course, this is the fourth #1 pick in the last 30 seasons, which is tied for the most in the NFL over that time frame. And there is the man from Athens, Ohio, the Heisman Trophy winner, Joe Burrow, who is the presumptive, for the next few minutes anyway, the #1 overall pick. So let's get to know Joe Burrow, the former LSU quarterback, and the high hopes he hopes to bring to the Cincinnati Bengals. He comes from a football family. They all went to Nebraska. Nebraska chose to not pick up on Joe Burrow, even after he was a 2014 Mr. Football out of Athens High School in Southeast Ohio, and then, of course, went to Ohio State. At one point, he was considered to be the next Alex Smith, but never really got going. Then he transferred to LSU. His first season in 2018 was okay. 16 touchdowns, 5 picks. And then 2019 happened, and my God, he rolled in everything you possibly could. Single season records for total offensive yards, total touchdowns at 60, or total touchdown passes at 60, total touchdowns at 65, a national championship, and a Heisman Trophy as well. It's arguably the greatest season a college quarterback has ever had. They beat 7 top 10 teams and scored a record 726 points. So let's get to know Joe Burrow as best as we can. Mel, Cincinnati is here because last year wasn't great. They have had some success, but they need Joe Burrow to up the ante here.
Yeah, I'd like to dispel that myth that the Bengals are the worst place to go. Since 2003, when they drafted Carson Palmer, 6 10-win seasons. That's as many as the Cowboys had, more than the Chargers, the Giants, and the 49ers. Quarterback since 2003, basically Palmer and Dalton have thrown 414 touchdown passes. That's 13th in the NFL. Not the worst place to go. And for Joe Burrow, what impressed me the most was the big games. There were 5 opponents that finished in the top 10 when the season ended. Against those 5 opponents, Joe Burrow had 22 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions. And when the pressure was on, he was always at his best.
He was absolutely Joe Cool. Daniel Jeremiah, when you see Joe Burrow, what's the first thing that stands out when you watch the tape?
Well, to me, it's just the poise that he plays with. I look at accuracy, poise, decision-making, playmaking, and Joe Burrow's off the charts in all 4 of those areas. The big leap took place from 18 to 19 because they got 5 guys out into the route, and that's where he was able to spread and shred every single defense he faced with LSU this fall.
Let's go to Kurt Warner next. Kurt, lots of quarterbacks have great stats, but you look for traits in college quarterbacks that can translate to the NFL. Yours certainly did. What are you looking at trait-wise that you like from Joe Burrow?
Well, you're right, Trey. There's not very many sure things at the quarterback position making that transition from college to pro. So what does translate? When you talk to players going from college to the NFL, the first thing they say is the speed of the game picks up. If you're looking at Joe Burrow, that was probably his greatest strength, was being able to process information, make good decisions, and get the ball out of his hands quickly. Also, a very accurate quarterback, over 76% completion. That is something that also translates. A couple things I really like about Joe Burrow.
All right, Kurt, thanks very much. Let's go to our front office insider, Louis Riddick. Louis, it was your job to evaluate talent like Joe Burrow when you were working with Washington and Philadelphia. What did you learn about him through this process?
Look, Trey, he's a guy who can do many, many good things, and he's a very diverse quarterback as far as the kind of things that he can execute both inside the pocket and outside the pocket. Inside the pocket, we've already talked about the fact that he's one of those guys who can just move subtly, buy time, keep his eyes down the field, and throw the ball with accuracy. He can throw the ball outside the pocket on designed boots and rollouts and throw it with accuracy there. And then the number one thing really is this. He is very, very athletic, almost sneaky athletic, but, you know, people who watch him realize that this is a guy who can pick up first downs with his legs, so he can do it all. You can see why Cincinnati ultimately is going to pick him.
Listen, we've got all the physical traits. Michael Irvin, you talked about this earlier in our pregame show about above the shoulders. I want to read a quote to you about Joe Burrow, about trying to be a leader. He said, everyone has their own secret sauce. You can't steal someone else's. If Burger King tried to make cane sauce, it would be crap. Everyone has to have their own. You just have to find it. And he seems like he's found that sauce.
Just by sharing that right there with you tells you he understands he has to be himself in order to win that locker room. But he has those three things that as a young man, he's going in a grown man's locker room and trying to win that locker room. They want to know, your quarterback, can you score? You just talked about he had the touchdown record in the FBS. They want to know, can you win? They went 15-0 and he won the Heisman Trophy. And they want to know, can you lead? He led his team to a national championship. That should go a long way, Trey, when he walk in that Bengals locker room and try to ascend to the leader of that team, franchise, and community.
Michael, you're absolutely right. And Booger, you saw this unfold firsthand. I mean, let's be honest. When Joe went to Baton Rouge, skinny kid from Southeast Ohio, he was all the way an outsider. And by the end of this past college football season, he could not have been more a Bayou Bengal.
Well, Trey, he's got that it factor. You know, many have tried, but Joe was the only one to succeed, to come to Baton Rouge and to galvanize all the talent that LSU had down there. And his ability to walk in the huddle and have the other 10 guys look at him and know that we have a guy that has supreme confidence, not cockiness, but just confidence. And Trey, I'll tell you a story. We were walking to midfield for the national championship game. It was me and Joe side by side against Clemson. He simply looked at me and gave me a wink. He's confident, not cocky, and Cincinnati's going to love him up there.
Oh, you got to like that in your quarterback. A very, very cool story there, Booger. So he did win the Heisman Trophy in a landslide, most first-place votes, widest margin of victory we've ever seen. But during that time, when Joe was at the pinnacle of individual achievement, he took a pause in that Heisman Trophy speech and for about 30 seconds spoke about something that was very near and dear to his heart.
Coming from Southeast Ohio, it's a very, very impoverished area, and the poverty rate is almost 2 times the national average, and there's so many people there that don't have a lot. And I'm up here for all those kids in Athens and in Athens County that, you know, go home to not a lot of food on the table, hungry after school. And you guys can be up here too. I'd like to thank.
And that has led to the Joe Burrow effect away from the field, including restaurants in the Plains, Ohio, naming meals and omelets after him. Look at him celebrating with the fans after they came back after that win over Alabama, and then changing his jersey name to Burrow in classic Louisiana style. He was in every way the Lion King as he won that Heisman Trophy in a landslide, and over $500,000 raised to the Athens Food Pantry. Even got a giraffe named after him. He put up a sign in Baton Rouge this week thanking them for everything they've done. And, of course, self-deflecting as well, basically monitoring and saying, I haven't gotten a haircut in a month, so don't make fun of me. I couldn't get to the barber and get cleaned up. But, ladies and gentlemen, the pick is in. The Bengals have turned in their selection. Let us go to the commissioner.
Okay, here we go. With the first pick in the 2020 draft, the Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow, quarterback, LSU.
And there you see Joe with mom and dad, and you have to wonder what's going through his mind right now. Remember, when he entered the transfer portal, he said one more time he wanted to go to Nebraska, and Scott Frost, the coach, said, is he better than what we got? The answer is yes. Mel Kiper, what do you like most about Joe Burrow's game?
I'll tell you what, the improvement was so dramatic, and you were a little cautious early on, Trey, because this was a sixth-round pick going into the year, and all of a sudden, you see this guy putting up big numbers. He looks like he's got it. He's incorporating every receiver into the mix. They got everything going. And you start moving him up to the third round, second round. I drew comparisons to Tony Romo. Then it became Tom Brady. Then you get late in the season after he won the Heisman Trophy, you say, boy, now the pressure's on. This is championship or bust for LSU, and he didn't blink. He got behind, I don't struggle in the Clemson game early, and then all of a sudden, lights out. Again, Joe Burrow's poise, his confidence, the way he manipulates the pocket, he just has that it factor. He has tremendous awareness. He slips, he dips, stays away from trouble, and then makes those accurate strikes down the field. Joe Burrow put together the best season I can ever remember a college quarterback having. As I said, you talk about the elite competition he faced, 7 opponents that were combined 77-18. That's 77-11 if you take those losses to LSU out of it. So this is a guy that every step of the way played above and beyond what anybody could have expected based on what we saw 2 years ago. I think his improvement was not only dramatic, it was historic, and I don't think we'll ever see it again, Trey. I've never seen a guy.
Most people talk about this, Mel, as far as him being a one-year wonder. But if you go back to 2018, you started to see this coming on. He was more and more comfortable. And then in 2019, when Joe Brady comes down there and he opens up the door and he says, you know what, Joe? I'm going to put 5 out wide and I'm going to allow you to see the field. And Joe Burrow grew up right before our own very eyes. And I think the Cincinnati Bengals are getting a player that if they will take some of the same concepts that Joe Brady brought down to LSU, if they will have some of those same concepts in Cincinnati, you will see the same thing from Joe Burrow, a quarterback that can lead your football team from a talent standpoint, and he will make sure that you guys go where you want to go, which is to the promised land.
Hey, Boog, a lot of people have asked me, why did he make that big transition from 18 to 19? It wasn't just the system. He got there late before that 18 season, didn't get a chance to get comfortable, and he had a little rust. He hadn't played a lot of football in 3 years, but what we saw this year was outstanding. How about the field vision, the awareness? You read the safety vacate, go towards the middle of the field. You've got a vertical with Justin Jefferson from the slot. You take that all day long. He identifies, he attacks, and he drops this ball beautifully in the bucket. How about working in the middle of the field? Anticipation and ball placement doesn't get better than that. And then the toughness. We've all talked about that toughness with Joe Burrow. His eyes don't drop under pressure. Hang in there. You take the big hit and deliver a strike right